Greetings. In this episode, we want to know, we have done a video on how to start a poultry farm business. I'm adding the word business. In fact, let me say how to start a profitable poultry farm business. Then I touched on broilers, I touched on layers, I touched on kienyeji improved. I have even done a video on how much returns you're going to make in a layers chicken farming business. So the question is, you are stranded. Should I invest in broilers or should I invest in layers? This episode, we discuss, we make a comparison between layers and broilers, then I leave you to make the decision for yourself. My name's Alantonio Innocent Mdongi, your full-time poultry expert, or rather poultry nutritionist up to master's level. And if you're new to our YouTube channel, guys, kindly hit the subscribe button, like and share. I have done for you an amazing masterclass. An amazing masterclass. What you'll never get on any platform on matters regarding how to start a successful layers chicken farm or a successful broilers chicken farm. I've even done for you a course on how to build a simple, affordable poultry unit. And I've even done for you a course on how you can formulate your own cheap quality feeds at home. Good. Should I do broilers or should I do layers? There are certain factors that will determine, leave alone money, how much money I need to start. Money is constant. We need capital to start both ventures. Let us start with the market. If you want to start a broiler farming business, you should be prepared for the biggest market share for broilers is this type of market whereby you have to deliver the birds, they are consumed, and then you deliver the next consignment, and then you are paid for the previous consignment. Fact. If you want to start a broiler farming business as a small-scale farmer in Africa, be prepared to deal with brokers. A broker will come to you. He holds like the market like this. Then he holds the farmers here. So you have to slaughter your birds, sell to this broker, who will in turn sell to the market. Fact. He will give you the price he wants. Then he will sell to the consumers at the prices he wants. And he will make it very difficult for most of you to directly connect the farm to the market. Why? If you're producing broilers, exactly from week 5 going to week 6, you have to ensure that those birds have attained the market weight that is required. If the birds exceed week 6, they will have to consume more. And that means they are consuming your pocket. Fact. I'll be specific about the Kenyan market and the Ugandan market. Mostly the East African market. They will prefer to consume broilers that are fresh, not frozen. So that puts you as a farmer, as somebody who's working on a very thin rope, trying to balance. Because you really have to be so sure about the market on broilers. The risk at production, or the risk at the market level is so high in broilers than in layers. Let's go to layers. When I'm producing my eggs, look at the life shell of the eggs. If I get conducive optimum conditions like reduced temperatures or cooler temperatures, I can store my eggs up to 1.5 months. So it gives me, as a farmer, the room to maneuver and get the right market. It even gives me, as a farmer, room to transport my eggs a distance from here, few kilometers or number of kilometers to get a market. That's why you see eggs being transported all the way from Busia to Kismayo, Somalia. Those are thousands of kilometers. They'll arrive when they're in good condition, then they'll be consumed, just to get higher prices. So a layers farmer is more cushioned at market level than a broiler farmer. That's why I chose to start with the market. That is where money is. So for a successful broiler farmer is one who has got a sure, certain, confined market with lesser risk. That's when you can compare him to a layers farmer. You see? Both these entities, in terms of profit, you'll make a kill. Both of them are profit. You get a profit. Reason being, layers, one will argue out and say, you know, my broilers, by the time your layers start laying, which is 16 weeks, my broilers, I would have sold them about, 16 weeks divided by 6. How many times are those? You know, a broiler farmer will argue and say, I don't have that laxity of waiting for a whole 16 weeks, 18 weeks. Let's say 18 weeks. In 18 weeks, I would have done production thrice. It's okay. You would have done production thrice. But bear in mind, you will be starting incurring that initial cost, brooding every other time, bringing your birds to maturity at 6 weeks, then disposing them. For the layers chicken farmer, brooding will be done once, then a continuous feeding. Then from there, production will be consistent for 100 weeks. So it simply means that between week 18 and week 100, a layers farmer will just be making money, feeding and getting money. But for a broiler farmer, you will then produce 100 weeks divided by 6. Yes, you're making money, but intermittent. But for a layers farmer, you're making money, but continuous. The risk is lower, the risk is higher. That is now when we compare the two. No, I'm comparing the two from a perspective of a starter. That's why I always argue out and say, if one was to be a successful broiler chicken farmer, then one has to start from the market. And if you're thinking of there's this funny thinking or common thinking of I'm quitting this job to start chicken farming and I'm going for broilers or layers, but more specifically broilers. Why? I'll open a restaurant, then I'll producing for my restaurant. Ah, you're producing for a restaurant. Is that restaurant having a certain confirmed number of consumers? And are those consumers able to give you a definite number of meat, chicken meat that they consume for a specific period? Watch out on such factors. Let's now go to the market dynamics. A farmer, or rather a broiler chicken business, is very seasonal. Very seasonal. It's a business that booms during festive season, then it's a business that lags during back to school. When there's any economic hard times, directly hits on broilers. Look at broiler farmers during festive seasons. They will sell their birds just in a single day, 24th of December, 25th, early in the morning. But then, before then or between the 26th, all the way to January back to school, there's a crisis. There's no market. They'll say the chicken are not moving. Competition in the broiler industry is also a bit higher. The broiler chicken farmers are competing with the kienyeji farmers for meat, especially the red bros. Unlike layers. In fact, during those times when there's a lag in consumption of broiler meat, there's a spike in consumption of eggs. Look at December, January, February, March, and April. The demand for eggs is very high. Fact. And even if we're having a lag in the market, I got nowhere to sell my eggs, of which I can't lack somewhere to sell my eggs, like the prices are lower, I can hold my eggs for a while. When you come back from Christmas, you want to eat eggs because they're cheaper than meat, then the demand spikes. So when you are comparing the two entities, we really have to compare them with our lenses, focusing on the market, not even on how much we make. The market. I love comparing broilers and layers from the market perspective. Leave alone these common things like the price of a day-old chick in layers versus the price of a day-old chick in broilers. You know, I can't make a comparison from the prices of day-old chicks and the prices of feeds, simply because the layer chicken have got their own feeding regime, which is completely different from a broiler chicken enterprise. You know, these are birds that will feed on starter crumbs, chick mash, grower mash, pre-layer rations, then laying rations. Then their feeding will go up, flat, down, based on their production, proportional to their age, proportional to their production. You cannot compare their feed intake with the broilers. These are birds with a completely different regime. They will feed on their broiler starter, then they will feed on their broiler finisher when they're being taken to the market. So then it becomes wiser for me to compare for you broilers and layers from the market perspective, because you want to make a decision on which to venture into. I have done videos or episodes discussing layers farming and how to start layers wholesomely. I've made a video on what are the costs of starting a layer chicken farm wholesomely. Just the same way, I'm going to do a video on how to start a broiler chicken farm wholesomely. What are the costs that you'll incur in starting a broiler chicken business wholesomely? Therefore, it makes economic sense. Or if I want to put you in a good position to make a decision which one to venture into, then I will discuss them in terms of the market. Cost of production depends on your skill, how you lower it or increase it. In Kenya we say ujanja wako, how smart you are. That's when you can play about the cost of production. Other factors, for example, the equipment used are more of the same. The scientific requirements in terms of the bedding, the litter, are more of the same. The vaccination regime is not the same. So that one I've discussed, especially in the masterclass, when I talk about how to start a broiler farm. I've discussed it wholesomely. The same way I've discussed layers wholesomely. So to get much guidance on broiler chicken farming, you can get it on our masterclass. I've shared a link, and also on layers, the same on the link. Guys, I love you so much. Now you can get a clear comparison or a clear understanding in markets dynamics between layer chicken farming and broiler chicken farming. Therefore, you can make a decision by yourself. I love you. Bye. I hope you enjoyed.